The disappearance of Lily and Jack has weighed on this community for months, and that time has only deepened the urgency around each clue. Those months were filled with organized searches, long nights for volunteers, and a family that has learned to measure its days in questions. Now the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have confirmed two major leads: precise, technical breakthroughs that promise to turn a diffuse search into a targeted investigation. For a family hungry for answers and for a town that has been living in suspense, these leads are not just data, they are direction. They change the nature of the work on the ground, the lines of questioning at the station, and the hope that a concrete resolution may be possible. The first lead centers on video evidence. Investigators gathered recordings from an array of sources: trail cameras left along tree lines, doorbell and home security systems around the neighborhood, dash cams from commuters, and any public-facing footage that might capture movement near the stretch of road in question. Within this mountain of material, analysts identified a vehicle captured at a critical time and place, a vehicle that had not matched earlier timelines. That recorded presence does not immediately point to guilt. Instead, it creates a locus for inquiry. A single frame, when treated carefully, can guide months of work. It becomes a hinge upon which the rest of the investigation can turn. Turning a frame into a lead is a detailed process. Technicians begin by preserving the original file exactly as it was received, every byte and every timestamp intact. Forensic copies are created to ensure the original is never altered. Then the work of enhancement begins. Using stabilization software, shaky footage becomes steadier. Algorithms correct rolling shutter distortions and clean up flicker from faulty lighting. With noise reduction and contrast adjustments, outlines that were once a blur can become discernible shapes. Analysts avoid creating detail that was not there. Their goal is to reveal, not invent. What was once a vague silhouette can become a recognizable profile: the curve of a bumper, the shape of headlights, a faint decal on a window. When direct identifiers such as a full license plate are not visible, indirect clues gain importance. The way a vehicle moves, its direction of travel, how it slows or turns, the length between axles, can narrow the class of vehicles that match. Wheel marks visible in low-resolution frames may link to particular tire patterns. Gravel kicked up by a turn can match disturbed ground found in a nearby driveway. Even how light reflects off paint at a certain angle can indicate color and texture. Analysts cross-reference these visual cues with vehicle registries, local dealership records, and reports from neighbors. Each small match tightens the net. Multiple cameras are synchronized to create a fuller, corroborated view. If a doorbell camera sees a vehicle at 9:12 a.m. and a trail cam captures the same object a few minutes later, analysts align the frames by timestamp or by matching visible events. When clocks on different cameras disagree, a common occurrence, investigators account for clock drift by finding fixed reference points, such as a known event captured simultaneously across devices. This lets them build a coherent, minute-by-minute sequence of movement through the area. As those frames are assembled, they become more than images. They become a timeline that can be compared against phone records, credit card transactions, and witness statements. The second lead is rooted in digital forensics. Investigators obtained legal authorizations to seize and examine phones, cameras, and storage devices. These are the devices people carry every day, the ones that may contain traces they never intended to leave behind. Deleted photos, encrypted messages, location tags, and file histories can be recoverable with the right tools and expertise. Forensic teams begin by creating exact, bit-for-bit images of storage media to preserve the original evidence. They then perform logical extractions to read files visible to the device owner and physical extractions to recover deleted items and fragments of data that remain in unallocated space. Metadata is recorded and analyzed. Timestamps embedded in photos, device IDs, and software signatures that show which device created or last edited a file. Metadata is particularly powerful because it ties a file to time, device, and context. EXIF data in a photograph can show the exact moment and sometimes the coordinates where a picture was taken. Timestamps from messaging apps can indicate when conversations occurred or when files were shared. File histories and software signatures can reveal whether a file was altered, renamed, or copied from another device. Forensic analysts are careful to validate these traces. Camera clocks can be wrong, timestamps can be altered if files are edited, and location tags can be spoofed. That's why cross-validation is so important. Investigators compare device metadata with other independent records like GPS logs from vehicles, CCTV camera clocks, and witness recollections to build a reliable sequence of events. Together, these two leads, the vehicle visible on camera and the digital trail recoverable from devices, allow the RCMP to concentrate their efforts. Where months of broad searches once swept large tracts of land, resources are now directed to areas and people that correspond to the evidence. Ground teams deploy to lanes shown on footage. Canine units focus on zones where disturbed soil aligns with a synchronized frame. A shed, a driveway, or a seldom-used side road becomes a priority when matched to video timestamps and device metadata. This shift reduces wasted effort and increases the probability of discovering physical traces that confirm or disprove a lead. Operationally, moving from search to targeted investigation changes how teams coordinate. Search maps become evidence maps. Command posts generate specific taskings tied to the timeline. Today's shift will comb the lane between 2 and 3, where a vehicle was captured on 2 different cameras. Tomorrow's work will focus on a property identified through device metadata. Canine handlers, forensics technicians, ground crews, and aerial units are deployed with narrow objectives. This orchestration requires meticulous planning. Access points to properties are secured, evidence collection kits are prepared, and legal documents such as warrants are drafted with locations and items precisely specified. The legal language in a warrant reflects the specificity of the evidence, and that specificity protects investigators' authority to gather material while safeguarding individual rights. Chain of custody is a legal and procedural backbone in this work. Every time a file, a device, or a physical item changes hands, a log records who handled it, when, and under what conditions. For digital media, hash values, digital fingerprints, are computed to ensure that copies remain identical to originals throughout analysis. If a file's hash changes, that indicates alteration, and its evidentiary integrity can be challenged. Meticulous chain of custody documentation ensures that when evidence is presented in court, its path from scene to exhibit is traceable and defensible. Interview strategy also shifts in this targeted phase. Detectives craft precise questions tied to the timeline, not broad queries that allow vague recollections but specific points that can be tested against cameras and device records. Witnesses who saw the road on the morning in question are asked to describe exact times, directions of travel, and any vehicles they noticed. Investigators sometimes separate witnesses to avoid cross-contamination of memory, and they avoid leading questions that might unintentionally cede details. When discrepancies emerge between a person's account and a device timeline, detectives re-interview to clarify movements. Discrepancies do not necessarily imply deceit. They may expose problems like clock misalignment, memory lapses, or previously unnoticed movements. Still, every inconsistency becomes a focal point for careful follow-up. For some interviews, polygraph tests are considered as a method to narrow lines of inquiry, though they are not foolproof and their admissibility varies. Polygraphs may be used internally to decide which avenues deserve greater attention, but detectives prioritize corroborated evidence over polygraph results when building a legal case. The strength of an investigation rests on material facts that can be verified and sustained under scrutiny, rather than on any single technique. The RCMP also pays attention to a broader forensic environment, labs and accreditation. Devices are sent to certified labs where analysts follow accepted protocols to extract and document data. Reports produced by these labs include methodology, dates, tools used, and the chain of custody for each item analyzed. This level of documentation preserves transparency. It shows defense counsel and a judge how evidence was handled, how conclusions were reached, and why analysts are confident in their results. It also protects the investigation from procedural challenges that can arise when evidence is mishandled or poorly documented. All the while, the community is engaged, but the engagement must be disciplined. Investigators have asked residents to check cameras and preserve footage. They emphasize, do not edit, resave, or convert files in ways that could alter timestamps or metadata. Save original files in their native format, make secure copies, and contact the RCMP so that trained teams can collect originals properly. People are also asked to keep written notes of times, weather conditions, and their own movements. These simple, concrete details, a grocery trip time, a dropped-off package, a passing neighbor, can validate or contradict digital records in meaningful ways. Volunteers who have been an extraordinary force in this investigation are now integrated into more strategic roles. Rather than free-form searching that risks contaminating areas, volunteers are assigned specific observational tasks, community liaison roles, and logistical support. They help maintain perimeter security, assist with hospitality for search teams, and coordinate donation efforts for the family. This preserves the integrity of search zones while leveraging community goodwill in ways that support, rather than hinder, the investigation. The family's experience throughout this process is complicated and raw. Each new lead intensifies hope and anxiety. Targeted searches and hard questions can feel invasive. They raise stress within relationships, prompt difficult conversations, and can expose long-kept secrets or inconvenient truths. The RCMP tries to balance investigative needs with sensitivity. Social workers and victim liaisons are often present to support families through interviews, offer practical help, and provide clear communication about the investigative process. Maintaining compassion while pursuing rigorous evidence collection is an operational priority. Technicians and analysts face long hours too. Video enhancement is not instantaneous. Stabilization, frame alignment, and noise reduction can take hours per clip. Analysts document each step they take with software logs and revision history. When a clue emerges, a dent that becomes visible after sharpening, a partial plate enhanced by AI-assisted edge detection, the discovery is logged, verified, and then used to frame the next steps. It might lead to a request for footage from a neighboring property, a check against vehicle registration databases, or a targeted interview with someone who had been in the area at the relevant time. Digital forensics, similarly, can deliver slow, careful breakthroughs. Deleted messages do not always reappear as a single coherent thread. Often they are fragments reconstructed from scattered sectors of a device. Analysts rebuild file systems, piece together fragments, and use timestamps to infer continuity. Even when data appears corrupted, experienced examiners can sometimes retrieve useful metadata that points to creation times or device origin. These recovered threads can be crucial. They can place a person in a location, show communication around the time of the disappearance, or corroborate the presence of a vehicle. Not every lead produces definitive answers. Sometimes frames remain too blurred, timestamps conflict beyond reconciliation, or a device's clock was never set correctly. Analysts must then weigh the reliability of each finding. That's why the RCMP uses a graded approach to certainty. Some matches are classified as probable, others as possible, and a few as confirmed. Probable leads prompt further verification. Confirmed matches justify more aggressive investigative moves such as warrants and targeted searches. As evidence accumulates, legal considerations come into sharper focus. Search warrants must be precise and justified by the evidence available. Investigators draft affidavits that describe the probable cause and the specific places and items to be searched. Judges review the supporting material, how the video frames were enhanced, what metadata was recovered, and how those findings point to likely sources of relevant evidence. Courts expect investigators to have done their due diligence. The rigor of the forensic work helps ensure that warrants are issued and that evidence collected under them will be admissible in court. If the evidence eventually points to a person of interest, arrest planning becomes a critical next step. Arrests are planned to minimize risk, protect the integrity of pending evidence, and preserve the safety of the public and the subject. Tactical considerations, time of day, backup teams, and transport logistics are coordinated so that operations proceed swiftly and lawfully. Once an arrest is made, the investigation does not stop. It intensifies. Forensic teams often execute follow-up searches based on information gleaned during arrests, and interrogations are conducted with the aim of corroborating device timelines and video evidence. Throughout this work, investigators maintain careful public communication. The RCMP provides updates that balance transparency with the need to protect investigative details. They ask the public to share factual information with officers rather than to amplify speculation online. The reason is simple: misinformation can generate false leads, stoke community divisions, and potentially compromise evidence. When people repeat unverified claims, it can cause innocent people to be questioned unnecessarily or prompt search activities that contaminate a scene. The presence of these two leads, vehicle footage and digital forensic evidence, represents the most substantial progress in months. They create a pathway from broad effort to focused action, allowing the RCMP to pursue specific locations, vehicles, and device histories. That targeting increases the likelihood of recovering physical evidence that corroborates digital findings and supports the case in court. Every small piece counts. A partial license plate, once enhanced and cross-checked with a narrow list of vehicles registered locally, can lead to a registered owner whose recent movements deserve scrutiny. A recovered deleted message may explain why someone was in the area at the time. A log from a dash cam could place a vehicle exactly where a trail cam captured it. These connections, created through painstaking cross-validation, can form the basis of a coherent case that withstands legal challenge. For the family, each confirmed piece of evidence is both relief and renewed anxiety. Relief because clarity inches closer, anxiety because the focused scrutiny can uncover uncomfortable realities. Still, the family's hope is palpable. The possibility that evidence will lead to accountability or, in the best outcome, reunification, sustains them through the long hours and the waiting. The community's role remains indispensable. Observant residents, people who maintain home cameras, and those who remember small details can tip the balance from uncertainty to clarity. Accurate reports, preserved footage, and direct communication with investigators are the most useful forms of assistance. The RCMP asks that anyone with potentially relevant material contact them so that trained personnel can handle originals correctly, preserving timestamps, metadata, and file integrity, and avoiding actions that could degrade the evidentiary value of a file. Tonight, the investigation is moving forward on two converging fronts. Analysts continue to enhance and compare video frames. Forensic teams comb through device images to recover hidden or deleted traces. Ground teams move deliberately into areas suggested by the combined evidence. Interviews continue, guided by a timeline that grows more detailed with each verified fact. The work is incremental but cumulative. Each verified detail refines the picture, focuses the search, and brings investigators one step nearer to answers. Tomorrow, the work will continue in the same methodical way. A vehicle identified across multiple feeds will be traced. Device data will be scrutinized for more connections. Grounds indicated by synchronized frames and metadata will be searched with renewed precision. Witness statements will be re-examined against an increasingly robust timeline. And at every step, investigators will document, verify, and execute with the legal rigor needed to build a case that can stand in court. For Lily and Jack's family, these leads bring a fragile but real hope. Each enhanced frame and recovered file is a brick in a foundation that could lead to the truth. After months of uncertainty, the RCMP's focus on a vehicle and a digital trail has changed the nature of the investigation from vast to specific, from searching to pursuing. The path toward answers and accountability is no longer an abstract wish. It is a methodical, evidence-driven pursuit. This is a delicate phase. Evidence will be tested, timelines will be confirmed or corrected, and investigators will follow wherever the facts lead. The RCMP's approach, combining video analysis, meticulous digital forensics, disciplined search operations, and precise interviews, is designed to produce reliable, legally sound outcomes. For the family and the community, every honest contribution, every preserved clip, and every truthful account pushes the investigation forward. And when the next development comes, whether a plate number is confirmed, a deleted message is recovered, or a physical trace is found that matches a video frame, it will be treated with the gravity it deserves. Each verified finding brings the possibility of accountability closer and, with it, the potential for justice and closure. Truth in investigations is deliberate, not instantaneous. It is built one verified fact at a time. Tonight, with 2 major leads in hand, the RCMP is following that slow, steady path. And for Lily and Jack, for their family, and for a town that has waited for months, that path may finally lead to the answers they need. Tomorrow will bring more work, more careful analysis, and, we hope, clearer answers. We will follow each step, each trace, and every verified discovery as the investigation advances. For now, the RCMP's confirmation of a vehicle on footage and the recovery of digital traces are the most promising developments in months, evidence that turns searching into pursuing and that brings the possibility of resolution into sharper focus.